How's it going, everybody? We have a website. Well, I have a website for you guys to use. So I tried to get Patreon support to help me out, and it just wasn't working. I wasn't able to get a solution for those of you that had purchased access through Patreon to access specific content. I wasn't able to get any feedback from them. So I wanted to do a website anyway because it's a one-stop shop. So it'll give the opportunity for everything that I create, videos, workbooks, things like that, to be over here on the website. So it's pretty basic right now. Right now it's not meant to be super captivating. It's meant to provide a function, which is access to the workbook and access to recorded videos that if you want to, you can pay to access. So it's the price point is $25 a month. So that gives you access to everything. If you already have access to the workbook, great. Then you will always have access to the workbook because it's already been downloaded by you. I am going to be working over the course, and I don't know how many labs it is, but I can give you an idea of how many labs it is. It's so if you're here on the web page, you can go to the menu tab, Enterprise, anything that's currently where there's currently content available on the site. If you go to the menu tab, this will tell you what's available. The workbook and the video on demand, they are a work in progress. I am working towards migrating all of the workbook tasks and labs over to the website, so it's going to take some time to do that. I'm hoping to do 5 or 10 a day. So let's say it takes me a month and a half to convert the PDF to a web page, and then those of you that have the workbook, then there's several of you. It's $25 a month, and you'll get access to the video on demand and the workbook. And this will give me the opportunity to update over time. Where the workbook itself, it would be then pushing it out to everybody, and then some people would have an outdated version because I maybe update this or change this around, whatever the case might be. So that's the game plan for that, is to eventually convert the workbook over to a web-based workbook, and then you guys can access that. If there's things that a topic that you would like to see covered that isn't covered, I would be able to then just add in topics on demand, and it wouldn't affect the existing workbook. So if you've already bought the PDF version, you always have access to that. So if you want to stay relevant with that, then $25 a month. And on top of that, I'm also working on recording all of the workbook solutions, and I'm going to continue to do that. And the evolution that I'm going to do is I will always start workbook first, so there will always be workbook content available and being processed as time goes on. So as I'm working through whatever track I'm on, it could be Cisco content, it could be Palo Alto content, it could be F5, it could be Fortinet, it could be VMware, it could be Microsoft. It really isn't going to make much of a difference what vendor platform I'm working on. The workbooks will always be created first so that I can have a known good configuration, and then I will always create video solutions for those, and that's where the technical deep dive is going to come into play. So there will be content released. The videos are going to be hosted on YouTube. You'll be able to access them through the website and all that type of stuff. So that's where that basically comes into play. And if so, at any point in time, you want to know what's available. So like, hey, I'm Rob. I'm interested in knowing what the workbook looks like. Well, there's a demo here. If you click on go to the menu tab, you go to Enterprise, and you click on the workbook. There is a demo of the workbook. This is the PDF download. So you'll be able to download the workbook, and if you click here, it redirects you to my Google Drive, and you'll be able to download the workbook. I think it's 8 labs total. So you'll be able to do that. And if you want to know what the table of contents looks like, I've wrote them out here. So it goes through everything that I go through. And This will get updated over time. So if I create a new lab, I'll come over here to the table of contents and I will update the table of contents to reflect what the configuration is going to look like and all that type of stuff. So that's what you get with the workbook. There's quite a bit here. It's 500 pages roughly. Now, if you go back to the menu tab, Enterprise, and you go to Video on Demand, these are the overview videos for each and every one of the major topic areas. So I will walk you through what you guys are going to see in the workbook, and then if you want access to the actual individual topics like VLANs, trunking, VTP, things like that, that's where you'll have to buy access to the videos. So that's where that'll come into play. So, and I've got them covered here, and all of these, like I said, I'm still working on recording to these, so it'll just be one of those things where you'll be able to dig into it as you go along. So there's that. Now, if you don't know what the enterprise topology looks like, this is what the workbook looks like. This is the topology that it's based off of. And so if that's something of interest to you, by all means, you can click Get the All Access Pass, and then it'll redirect you to this. I'm working on a picture for it. For right now, it gets the job done. And then, like I said, $25 a month for that access. Same thing with over here on Shop. It basically breaks down what the workbook is about. Again, right now the website is pretty bare bones until I have time to put more coolishness. It's like it's the form, make it pretty it up, that type of thing. I'm probably going to have to look at maybe a web designer that can come in and kind of pretty things up for me. That's not really that's not where I'm creative. So, matter of fact, this is my creative juices in the background. I mean, that's like, I want it to be functional. I want it to serve a purpose, which is providing access to videos, workbooks, things like that. So you click on Shop, and then you can purchase the All Access Pass, and it gets you to here, $25 a month, and you're good to go. So that's pretty much that. Like I said, I am going to be working on, and now that I've covered that, if you guys have any questions at all about the website, I'll put a link in the description below, but it's just robreichertechchannel.com, because everybody knows me through Rob Reicher Tech Channel on YouTube. It just made sense to take that same title and put it as my webpage. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to dig into it. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have down in the comments, things like that. So that's where that's going to go. And any workbooks, any videos that I create that are going to be available, this is where it's going to go. So don't feel Patreon, pretend like it doesn't exist. So that's where this is going to go, and things like that. So if you guys have any questions on that, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So with that being said, I'm going to jump back over here to the comment section. We're going to go through some of the recent comments for this week's installment of Tech Support Thursday. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go back a week. Don't need to go quite that far back. Let's see here. Okay, I think that might work. Okay. Hi Rob, in one of your previous videos you mentioned that you want to size down topology of an RC lab, and you were going to remove disaster recovery site from the topology. Is there any way you can keep it? Yeah, so I redesigned that topology, and I'm still working on building out the configuration for that. I actually paused all of my other production for a day or two just so that I could get the website operational, because I had people that were telling me that they had paid for access, but they couldn't get access to it. Those folks, I'm going to reach out to them individually. I forgot to mention this earlier. If you had purchased access through Patreon, but you couldn't access the content, I'm going to add you as members, and you'll have like a month free for the inconvenience. It's like 10 people. so it's not that big of a deal. But then after that, then everybody else, it'll be 25 bucks a month, and you'll be able to access the content as it goes on. I'm actively working on recording stuff, so it'll take some time to work through all the recordings, but once I'm there, we'll be in good shape. So I actually am in the process of writing the workbook for this. I do have a small DR site, and I was able to size down the topology quite a bit and simplify it. And it's missing a lot of nomenclature, meaning a lot of descriptions, a lot of information on the topology isn't there. I should add it in because it'll make my brain easier to sit there instead of trying to figure it out. I'll just be able to look at it and things will click. So that's where that'll come into play. So it'll still be there, but in a much smaller capacity than it was the first time. The first time I did it, it was way too big. It was way too unstable. And then one of the things I also did is I've got it launched inside of a virtual machine inside of ESXi. And the reason why I did that is because that's how most people deploy the workbook, and most people don't have a dedicated server to install Eve directly on bare metal. Normally it's going to be a ESXi host or some sort of virtualization platform, could even be Workstation or Fusion or VirtualBox or something like that, and they run EveNG inside of that. And so my goal is to, you can import the topology into your Eve instance, copy and paste, and the configs will all be available, and go from there. I am working on building all that type of stuff out, and the workbook for that will also be available on the website. So I'll just have to add in more content for that and how that'll come into play, but that'll be specific to that. And then I'm going to, it's going to take a little while to get all that done, but once it is done, then I'm going to start shifting my focus over to CCDE preparation. So, which is also going to incorporate real world networking. I figure why not knock out both at the same time? So I have some ideas as to how I'm going to go about doing that, but it's going to be a lot of learning initially for me because I'm having to dive into topics and technologies that I've never dealt with before or aren't as strong in. So that's where that comes into play. So this guy commented a couple times. I have a Sophos and EveNG with lab config on protocol LACP. Connect this device to Nexus VPC. Port channel and lag interface both up without problem. I allowed VLAN 10 on trunk, but I can't ping SPI 10 from firewall and vice versa. If this is possible for you to please run the scenario, maybe we can find out what my problem is. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to probably dig into that a little bit. Hey Rob, first off, let me thank you for everything you are doing in the networking field. I admire your passion. Keep it up. Could you please help me out? I'm trying to replicate the campus design in EveNG. The three-tier network design that you portrayed in this video, and I would like your advice as to which network devices I am to put at each layer. Access, distribution, and core. Should I go with the IOSB L2 image for access and distribution, and perhaps IOSB L3 or Nexus for core? I have a dedicated server, so processing power and memory shouldn't be a problem. Cheers. So, yeah, you could put, you've already answered your question. So, I would put the IOSB L2 image for your access switch and distribution, like you mentioned here, and then your router. I wouldn't put Nexus in there unless you got you don't care about compute, because Nexus is a lot heavier than iOS. So I would IOSB L3. As a matter of fact, this one here. Let me log into this box right here because this is actually what I'm doing here. So for the Encore and RC topology, I'm going to show it again. That's what I'm doing here. Is I've got IOSB L2 image is sitting here at your access layer, but then I've got the router sitting at core and distribution, and that's because of the fact that I'm looking at testing out and showing you guys OSPF v3 So to do IPv6 end to end, so I need that in order to work because OSPF v3 isn't supported on IOSB L2, only RIP and EIG or PR. So there's going to be not a lot of IPv6, but enough to where I want to be able to do 6 VPE between all the PE routers, and then do an eBGP peering down to WAN 1, and then the routes propagate to all these other devices. So that's the plan that I have. It's a pretty lightweight topology. I think I'm running, it's sitting at what, 40-ish% CPU, 12% memory. So 38 total nodes. Most people should be able to run this. It might be a little heavy. And if I remember correctly, bring this over here real quick. I have it running here. This box it's 8 CPUs and 32 gigs of RAM. So you should be able to get away with that, and it seems to be working just fine. It is a little high in the utilization for CPU, 60%. So nothing too crazy, but that's okay though. The whole purpose of this is to be able to give you guys a realistic way of demoing this. Now, memory, you probably don't need to be that high in memory considering I'm sitting at, what did it say? 12%. So I'm using, well, 10% would be, I'm sorry, 25% would be 8 gigs. So I'm using half that. So I'm using about 4 gigs of memory right now based off this. CPU probably could get bumped up a little bit. I might be able to go to 12 CPUs. That probably would help. And this would lower this CPU usage just a little bit. But I don't remember what the ESXi licensing gives you, because I pay for the vMug Advantage. So my license, I can go as many CPUs as I want. Matter of fact, if you look here, I happen to have Cisco Catalyst Center, and that needs 32 CPUs. And I can get this running. I've had it up and running. I started to dive into SDA, but because I had this working, but I ran into discovery problems and things like that. So I basically said the heck with it. So let's go back over here to these comments. So this is, but yeah, I would definitely do iOS VL2 image for both access and distribution, and then the router for the core. That absolutely would do the trick. So I talked a little bit about that stuff. Actually, let me see if I haven't responded. So because there are problems with Patreon, a lot of it just made more sense for me to go through a website, which is the direction I'm going with. I had the issue of Patreon. I tried to cancel. It gave me the option of 25 or 10, so not to cancel. So I'm going to keep the $25 all access pass, and that'll just be the way it is. So I'm sure the question is going to come across, well, what if I want to just buy the Encore workbook when it comes out? Well, maybe I come up with a price point for that. I don't know yet, but we'll figure that out later on down the road. But for right now, it's one of those things where I will cross bridges when the bridge is ready to be crossed. So I mentioned real-world networking and stuff like this. Now, this guy here responded a couple times when it comes to specific things. So here's my take on some stuff. I get in the real world, /30 networks are very commonplace, and I probably will be doing that for specific things. But here's the thing. I got to be honest with you, I don't know why this is so important to you. I just can't, it doesn't make sense in my brain why, even in, like in a real world design, like if we're talking, we're labbing stuff up, I don't understand why you, because you're like one of the, I think you're the only person that gets to this level where they are like, please use slash 30s whenever it's correct by design. Um, so I get that, and I will be using that in specific areas. But it's a to me it's more subnet I addressing that I have to worry about. So I know that's going to be the game, the goal anyway, but well, to a very small percentage of it will be an addressing overview, and I will be discussing how addressing comes into play because I'll be taking parts of the CCNP design exam, the concentration, and incorporating some of those characteristics and capabilities into this one, but do understand that that's not going to be everywhere. So if you're like, I would want to see slash 30 wherever it's possible, I'm going to be doing it, but in a limited fashion because I don't know why. I really don't. It just doesn't make sense why you are so gung ho on use slash 30s. It's like, okay, what difference does it make? You get the point of it. It's a transit segment. Why do you feel so? I just don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not trying to make anybody feel weird about it or whatever. It just, you know, um, I brought it up, and you're very very consistent about it. So just I don't know. Just it feels weird to me to be that adamant about something so in the grand scheme of things so such an insignificant piece. You know, because it'd be a different story if you were like, to me anyway, if you were coming across as if uh, you wanted to know everything there was to know about VPNs, right? That to me would have like if you were very specific on that, that would make way more sense because to me that's way more valuable to understand than whether or not the topology has a slash 30 subnet somewhere in it. You know, to me it's um, so that's where I take that. So the other thing in here is what I like to see is something like greenfield deployment when you build everything from scratch. Well, that's the whole purpose, right? That we're going to be building it from scratch. If you're talking about me going through and building out a location where we literally have to drag and drop the icons and then do the wiring and all that type of stuff and then worry about building it out, that's already going to be done. I might do a small implementation where it's greenfield, but the reality of it is the folks that I'm going to be, unless that's specifically what you are working on in your day-to-day job, typically speaking, the folks that are going to be configuring the equipment are not the folks that are racking and stacking it. Two different groups typically. So not saying that they don't. I mean, I've done it plenty of times as a CCIE. It doesn't bother me to do it. But I'd say the vast majority of my career, minus three or four times that I can recall in the recent past, over the past few years, where I have had to go on site and then physically take a switch or a router or a firewall out of a vendor's box, put ears on it, put it into the rack, screw the ears to the rack, and then put the power cable, the SFPs in, put the fiber in. That's usually somebody else's job, and somebody else is already taking care of that. And so that's one of those things where it's just like, okay. So we are still going to do a staged approach where I'm still working on we work on reachability to get at least things reachable, pings work, things like that, basic routing, stuff like that, and then we can always add complexity later so that we can definitely dive into those areas of topic scope and things like that. So these are just some of the areas that we're going to be definitely getting into. So, and then the other one here was doing IOL. So I do have 2.7. So we'll have to see exactly how far I can take that. Seems interesting, though haven't been able to find a complete feature comparison chart other than lacking in programmability features, some funky layer one behavior. Yeah, so here's the thing. I get where you're coming from with IOL, but to me, I haven't seen enough deployments of it to or in a lab state on consistently to trust it, especially when I'm looking at iOS V and the CSR. I've labbed on those for thousands of hours, and they're consistent. Are there CPU problems every once in a while? Yes. But the reality of it is that, especially when I'm working on projects that are, well, long term, then they're much more stable. So if you see a topology, for example, this has got iOS V in it, right? Does it take a lot of CPU and RAM? Not terribly. It does take a little bit, but not very much at all. And the reason why I do that is because it's stable. So you can use whatever box you want, and that's one thing that I've always reiterated. If you've got the horsepower and you want to run CSR 1000 Vs everywhere to get the job done, go ahead. You want to use IOL, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But from a development perspective, I need stability and be able to, because I can't work on these things every day, and I'm not going to spin down and spin up a lab just to save a little bit of power. To me, I want the convenience of I have to open up Secure CRT, hit the enter key a couple times, and I want to get right after it. I don't want to be wasting my time sitting there going, okay, let me spend 25 minutes powering this thing back up, waiting for it to boot, and then I want things to be much more available to me, which is why I have it set up the way that I do, and this gives me stability. I mean, some of these routers, they've been on for almost a week now, and they do just fine. I hit the enter key, I get everything going. CPU spikes a little bit initially because of the fact that the devices are doing stuff, but overall, that's where that comes into play. So if you, the user, the consumer of the content, need to go with a lighter weight platform because of the fact that you don't have the resources, that's your call. But for me, I need stability for what I'm doing, and I'm all about that. So with that being said, that is what I am working on right now. If there's anything you guys are interested in, please let me know in the comment section. But for right now, that's where this is going to come into play. And there was one comment that I got. Somebody DM'd me and asked that if any of the videos that are going to be available through the website that you pay for, since they're being hosted on YouTube, will I be able to comment on them? And the answer is you will be able to comment on them. That you'll always be able to comment, and I will respond to those videos specifically in the video itself. So it might actually force me to do another video to answer that question, things so on and so forth. So, but anyway, that's what I've got going on for you guys right now. If at any point in time you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me. Don't bother using the website to try to reach out to me. YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, use any one of the other methods right now, because the website is bare bones right now, and it's going to need some time for real world development. I'm going to have to go through, and I have to figure out what the flow is going to look like and things like that. So right now it's bare bones. At some point in the future, I would like to get it up to where it's more intuitive and easy to use, but for right now, that's just not how it is. So if you guys have anything like that, let me know in the comments. But until next time, guys, if you haven't already done so, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch all of you fine folks in the next video.